And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Debrief. Aaron Keller along with attorney Michael Bryant today on what's sure to be a busy evening. A jury has just been seated to hear the trial of one of two men accused of killing a Georgia beauty queen. Bo Dukes is charged with concealing the death of teacher and pageant competitor Tara Grinstead. Dukes is further charged with making a false statement and hindering apprehension in Wilcox County, Georgia. He faces other charges in another county. The case against him unfolded when his girlfriend told state investigators that he admitted helping a co-defendant dispose of Grinstead's remains on his family's pecan orchard. Opening statements in that case could begin any moment, and we'll take you there if and when they happen. Meanwhile, a jailhouse call is shedding new light into the kidnapping of Jamie Kloss and the murder of her two parents. Defendant Jake Patterson called a Minneapolis television station from his jail cell and said, quote, "I love her," with reference to Kloss. He also said they were, quote, "just watching TV, playing board games, talking about stuff." This is when Kloss had been kidnapped. He also said, quote, "We cooked a lot. Everything we made was homemade." Patterson admitted to police that he kidnapped Kloss and held her captive after killing her parents. He claimed in a letter to a different TV station that he plans to plead guilty. DNA testimony today in the case of a Florida man accused of murdering his father, dismembering the corpse, and burying part of it on a golf course. James Scandarito Jr. faces the charges but does not face the death penalty. Prosecutors say the defendant took his father's money, had two passports, and lined up a private plane. The defense, however, says Scandarito and his father, who used to be a judge, were dealing drugs. The defense wants the jury to believe the father died after taking drugs and that James Jr. merely chopped him up so authorities would not find out about their drug dealing. A DNA analyst today testified that the victim's DNA was on a box in his own garage. Earlier, police testified about a suspiciously clean portion of that garage and how several items in the area tested positive for the presumptive presence of blood. DNA results on two suitcases police watched the defendant throw into a dumpster were either inconclusive or could not exclude the father as a contributor. Not as strong a match there as authorities had hoped on the suitcases. A medical examiner today testified that the victim had marijuana in his system along with slight amounts of alcohol and prescription painkillers. Here is how he interpreted his findings.
He had evidence of having smoked marijuana. He also had two painkillers, hydrocodone and oxycodone. Those are prescription medications. He also had a little bit of alcohol in his system. The amount of alcohol could have just been from the decomposing. So when we decompose our bodies, actually the bacteria in our bodies can actually produce alcohol, the same alcohol that we would drink. He has a little bit in his system as well.
What was the quantity of alcohol that was found to be in the decompositional fluid of Mr. Scandarito?
It was 0.073%.
And could that amount of alcohol be solely as a result of decomposition?
It could be, yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen higher in people that don't drink and just are decomposing.
What were the levels of the hydrocodone and the oxycodone found in Mr. Scandarito's decompositional fluid?
Hydrocodone was 21.3 nanograms per milliliter, and the oxycodone was 69.6 nanograms per milliliter. What I can tell you is it's not a lot, so it doesn't concern me in terms of his cause of death. It's in his system. There's no therapeutic range for marijuana.
Yes.
But for the two painkillers, I wouldn't be worried about it now.
That same medical examiner said a lack of bruising on the victim's body suggests he was dismembered after he was already dead. Jurors on Friday also heard the defendant's recorded police interview. He suggested his father was probably out having sex, and he claimed to know nothing about his father's disappearance.
For the 3 days that he talks about, he doesn't tell you where he's been, where he's going.
Just that he's been with this woman.
Okay. But doesn't say what they're doing, where she lives.
Nothing.
Where her house is.
No.
What their activities are going to be.
I'm assuming their activities are sex.
Okay.
I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why do you say that?
Well, because I gave him some Viagra.
You gave your dad some Viagra?
Yeah.
When did you do that?
I gave that when I came back on Thursday.
You gave him Viagra. Did he ask for it?
Yes, he asked for it.
Where does that come? Again,
Didn't know that.
how does that come?
I didn't, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I mean, it's fine. I just didn't know that.
How did that conversation go?
It was, you know,
Okay, folks, we're going to dip onto that clip from last week because opening statements are happening right now in the Bo Dukes case out of Georgia. This involves the death of beauty queen Tara Grinstead.
The words of this defendant, the words of Bo Dukes, 1,200 degrees, it burns in his bones. These are the words that Bo Dukes tells his fellow recruit in basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, John McCullough. Before a conwood torched those human bones, those bones belong to a living, breathing human being with flesh, a beautiful face, a winning personality. The personality, the face of Tara Grinstead. Tara was a daughter, sister, a teacher, a cheerleading coach, pageant queen. She was the one who invested her lives in others. Late that Saturday night and early Sunday morning of October the 22nd and 23rd, 2005, Ryan Duke, the then roommate of this defendant, Bo Dukes, traveled to her small residence, 300 West Park Street in Osceola, Georgia, in Irwin County, and killed her. He left a glove outside as he moved her body to Bo's truck. And Ryan takes it and leaves it in the tall grass in the pecan orchard that Bo Dukes' family owned. In fact, leaves her naked body in the tall grass in the pecan orchard known as Hudson Farms. Fitzgerald Farms. Ryan, his roommate, tells him what's happened. And then for the next few days, Bo and Ryan go out to the pecan orchard where they move the body. They move the body in the pecan orchard and they burn her body down to human bones and ashes. And that's where they leave her, alone, reduced to ashes. In a pecan orchard in Fitzgerald. A few weeks later, this defendant, Bo Dukes, and his buddy Ryan Dukes have a bonfire out in the same orchard. Not in the same location where they burned her body to bones and ashes. They have a bonfire with some friends out. One of those friends is a young man by the name of Garland Lott. And Garland is out there and he sees Bo and Ryan there together. And they say that they killed her, and they burned her body. Garland, being one of their friends in their peer group, was very disturbed by what they said. And Garland reported it to local law enforcement. Local law enforcement went to that location where they actually had the bonfire for the party, not to the location where her body was actually burned. Law enforcement looked. They didn't locate anything there at that location because it was at a separate location, some great distance away of where she was actually burned. Nothing came from what Mr. Lott told law enforcement when they went to look. They didn't find him. But we are not here to try Bo for terrorist murder. Now, you'll hear evidence about the murder, but that's not what we're here to do. You'll hear that Ryan left his glove outside the terrorist residence at 300 West Park, out in Ocilla, that has his DNA and terrorist DNA on that glove. You're going to see blood that was left on terrorist comforter. But this case is not about her murder. This case is about lies. This defendant's lies. This case is about his secrets, his denial. That's what this case is about. Those charges are here in Wilcox County. They're for 2 counts of false statement, hindering the apprehension of a felon, and concealing the death of another. This is the indictment that's been returned by the Wilcox County Grand Jury that he did on January the 16th of 2016, knowingly, willfully falsify, conceal, or cover up that Ryan Alexander do, and told him, confessed him about the death of Tara Faye Grinstead, a material fact in the investigation of her disappearance. A matter within the GBI state agency by his denial to Agent Jason Shadell at the GBI that he did not discuss Tara Faye Grinstead with John McCullough. Count 2, same day, June 16th of 2016, that he did falsify, conceal, and cover up that he assisted Ryan Alexander Duke destroying and disposing of the body of Tara Faye Grinstead. A matter within the jurisdiction of the GBI by his denial to Agent Shadell, the GBI, that he did not discuss burning the body of Tara Faye Grinstead with John McCullough. Count 3 that he did on that same day, June 16, 2016, and lawfully concealed a confession of murder made to him by Ryan Alexander Duke, evidence of a crime of malice murder, that he knew or had reasonable grounds to believe it was committed by Ryan Alexander Duke, and he intended to hinder the apprehension of Ryan Alexander Duke. Count 4 that he did conceal the death of Tara Faye Grinstead, which hindered the discovery whether or not she was unlawfully killed by Mr. Duke, by his denial to Agent Shadell during the investigation by the GBI of the interview regarding the death and destruction of the body of Tara Faye Grinstead. Those are the 4 counts that you were selected to decide and to reach the truth about. That's what this case is about, are those 4 charges. The state has the burden of proof, and we intend to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this defendant is guilty of all 4 of those charges. In November of 2006, so remember Mr. Lott gave a statement to law enforcement pretty close in time to the fact when she disappeared in October of 2005. In November of 2006, this defendant, Bo Dukes, goes to Fort Steele, Oklahoma, where he is in basic training as a recruit. During the Christmas break, they call it, I think, Christmas Exodus, they came home to Rochelle, Georgia, where John McCullough, I believe, rode a bus over here and stayed with Bo and his mother, Nixie Hudson. And John McCullough, I expect to tell you that while he was driving, and perhaps they had something to drink that night, some alcoholic beverages, that this defendant, Bo Dukes, begins telling him that 1,200 degrees is what it takes to burn human bones. Mr. McCullough, as they're riding around in this area from Rochelle to Fitzgerald and into Ocilla, Mr. McCullough sees a billboard about Tara Grinstead and that she's missing. And he notices that she's a very beautiful lady, and of course he inquires of Bo Dukes about the beautiful missing lady that is on the billboard. And he doesn't say anything at that time, but Mr. McCullough will tell you later that night that he says, "Hey, you're my battle buddy, right?" And he'll tell Mr. McCullough, "I know who did it." He tells Mr. McCullough, "My buddy showed up, and, excuse my language, but his buddy says, I fucked up. I did something bad and I need your trouble. Mr. Bo Dukes tells John McCulloch that they then went and burned the body where nobody could ever find it because pecan wood burns really hot. Remember, 1,200 degrees burned her human bones. John McCulloch later calls Jason Shadell with the GBI. Mr. McCulloch, in fact, does a telephone interview with Jason Shadell on June the 14th of 2016. When Mr. Shadell talks with him 2 days later, Agent Shadell interviews this defendant, Bo Dukes, right here in Wilcox County at the Rochelle Police Department. That's what this case is about, is this interview at the Rochelle Police Department. With that interview, this defendant is confronted by Agent Shadell about what John McCulloch had told him. And this defendant says, nope, denies it all. June 16th of 2016. Don't know anything about Tara Grinstead, don't know anything about her body, I don't know anything about it. Would you have told John McCulloch that? No, I don't know why he would say something like that. Well, after those lies to Agent Shadell, his denial, nearly 7 more months have passed. And this defendant Bo's girlfriend is Brooke Sheridan. And Brooke and Bo have been living together in Perry, the Houston County. In January 2017, they have a disagreement. And they kind of separate for that time. It's then in that late January to early February that Brooke assembles her closest friends and assembles her mother, Kim Sheridan. And what she does is she tells the secret, Bo's secret, that he had been keeping for Ryan. And Brooke tells Bo's secret that he had been keeping for Ryan to her mother and her closest friends. She had found out, Brooke had found out just a few weeks ago that Bo had told her what Ryan had done and what he had done to the body of Tara Grinstead. Kim Sheridan, being the mother of Brooke, calls District Attorney Tim Vaughn, another circuit. And District Attorney Vaughn refers her to the GBI. Sheridan is interviewed by GBI, that is Ms. Kim Sheridan, and she tells them what her daughter told her. Brooke Sheridan is interviewed a couple of days later. Brooke Sheridan tells the GBI that Bo had confessed to her that Ryan had killed Tara Grinstead and that Bo had helped burn and destroy and dispose of her body. Kim Sheridan, knowing that her daughter is involved in a relationship with this man, later confronts Bo herself. And she asked Bo, what happened? And Bo tells her, Ryan killed her, and I helped him dispose of the body. I helped burn, destroy, and dispose of her body. You will hear that in the pecan orchard, Fitzgerald Farms, Hudson Farms, they're off the Owens Mill Highway in Fitzgerald that GBI agents go out to that location. They are looking in a couple of different locations, and finally they find a location out there on Fitzgerald Farms where they begin to dig for the bones that burned 1,200 degrees of terra candens. In fact, the GBI began using a forensic anthropologist. An anthropologist, one who normally would go out and dig in burial grounds or old bones. But Dr. Alice Gooding comes from Kennesaw State University, where she helped them go out and to search in the pecan orchard near Pine Picket for the bones of Sarah Grandson. Well, it is there where they dig, and you'll see the plots, F and G and J and I, how they identify them, and where they would scrape soil, layer after layer after layer. And they will find bone, a little bone here, a little bone there, a vertebra, a tooth, scalp, your skull, pieces, burned, measured. It's there that Dr. Gooding will identify Tara's final resting place. There at a pecan orchard after more than 11 years of being missing. She's found. But she's found in bones and ashes. This case is about Bo's secret. Bo's secret that he kept for Ryan. It's about his secret. That he helped Ryan destroy, burn, and dispose of her body. The secret that he kept here in Wilcox County when he spoke with Agent Shadell on June 16 of 2016. This case is about Bo's lies. Lies that lasted from 2005 to 2016. It's about Bo's cover-up. It's about Bo's concealment that his best friend Ryan had killed Tara Grinstead, and then they both burned the body. It is about Bo's pecan wood and his family's pecan orchard that burns hot at 1,200 degrees, where it burned the bones, burns the flesh, and burns the bones to ashes. After you've heard the evidence in this case, the state will have proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant is guilty of all four counts.
Mr. Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is nearly 5:30, and I know you have had an incredibly long day. I saw you all downstairs coming in the courthouse before 8:30. You've been extremely patient throughout the jury selection process, which took most of the morning. You're incredibly patient in this actual selection process where you were chosen to be on this jury. And now your job begins. As the judge instructed, gave you kind of a roadmap, if you will, for those preliminary instructions. Kind of an orientation. I'll tell you the thing I've never liked about orientation. It's orientation that you take at school, perhaps with a job, maybe somewhere you volunteer, is that invariably orientation seems to make the task that is ahead of you much more difficult than what it is. So that's the case. I want to keep it simple. Now, as the judge said, opening statements are not evidence. You are here to determine what happened during an interview that lasted less than 15 minutes on June 16, 2016. That is it.
We are listening to opening statements in the trial involving the death of beauty pageant winner and teacher Tara Grinstead. This is the Bo Dukes case. We're going to stay in coverage if you're watching us on the Law and Crime Network. For those of you watching on the Daily Debrief, it's been good to be with you for these live opening statements. We'll be back in a moment.